in cybersecurity, when you say hacked, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, a hacker is trying to get into our secure environment, and they're trying to get into our networks, our servers, and our job is to keep them out, but they're coming in for a specific reason. And it's 9 out of 10 times it's financial. They want to hack your systems. They want to get into your environment. They want to learn your environment. And then they want to make that financial move to get money out of your account out onto the Bitcoin platform.
You and I have worked with some of the average, everyday citizen who's not a multi-billion-dollar company, but yet they get hacked. I know this because I have friends where it's obvious someone has gotten into their contacts and they start sending messages that look like they're coming from my friend.
Yeah, the email's being spoofed.
And they're coming to me, and I know they're not from them because as soon as I read, I think this is not his vernacular, this is not his syntax. I can tell from looking at it that this is not him, but it says it's coming from him.
Right.
What is the interest in getting into somebody's contacts? And is that how far they usually get?
Yeah, so it all starts with the human element. That's hacking more than anything else. Is they target one person. So let's say that they target you and they hack your account, they hack your email account, and they look at your sent emails and they look at your address book and they export. They take your entire address book that you have in email and Outlook, for example.
Right.
And now they have all of your contacts. And then from there, they're going to start reaching out to every one of them saying that they're Dr. Phil. But for the average person, when they get that email, it's something like we saw earlier today on the show about, I need money right away. I'm in the hospital. I've been in an accident, whatever it may be. And that's how the hackers start. So they have this huge base to work with yours as ground zero.
So let's say I get an email from Bobby X.
Yeah.
And it's not Bobby X because somebody's gotten into his contacts and sends it to me.
Yeah.
If I respond to it, does that give them any access to me?
And that's a great question because it depends. So a couple of things happen right there when you respond. Now they have verified that your email address is legitimate. That's for starters. Now what they might do a couple emails later when they respond to you is have a link to something. Hey, I need you to check this out real quick. Would you mind? It's when you click on that link that the real trouble begins, because two things will happen. One, most likely you get rerouted to another website that'll ask for your username and password. And you think, I just got locked out of my email. I got logged out. I got to log back in. And a lot of people will log back in. Or what's even worse, when you click on that link, someone now has access to your machine. A very good hacker, once you click on that link, there's a lot of things I now know about you and that machine that I'm getting ready to hack.
Okay, so if we get a link, somebody sends us a link and we don't know this person.
Yeah.
And we don't recognize the link, we obviously should not click on it.
You should delete the email. But if you are curious, one thing you can do is you hover your mouse, your pointer of your mouse onto the link. And when you do that and you don't click on it, you just hover over it, it'll actually show you the link it's actually going to. So if it says Microsoft.com, but when you hover over it, it's a completely different link, then you know that it's fake.
Let's think back before the proliferation of the internet. Somebody could be living out in some rural community in the UK or the US, and they may have these wild theories. They may have these conspiracy theories, but they're pretty isolated.
Yeah.
But now, being on the internet, those theories get oxygen, and other people that might have even a thread of that, they start interacting and they start feeding off each other and they grow exponentially.
What we found was exactly that, but there was a disturbing additional fact that we realized that disinformation, that hate, actually gets an advantage on those platforms because there is no level playing field. In fact, the platforms, we realized, in the way that they present information, they don't give you a timeline. What they give you is a artificially sorted list of content based on how likely it is that you will engage with it. So they are looking for something that the key thing that they look for is engagement. Are people writing back? Are they quoting it? And they found that hatred gets people who, not just people who agree, but people who vehemently disagree, engage with it. So what was happening over time was lots and lots of hate was getting engagement. Tolerant content, normal people who just want to just live their lives, their voices were being quietly silenced. And in fact, what it was doing was amplifying that hatred into billions of news feeds, normalizing those ideas, making it look as though our world is more brittle, more hateful, more full of lies than it was before. And that, over time, has had a really devastating impact on our societies.
Yeah. And let's talk about how that's happening, because I think people hear this and they don't realize what's actually happening. I've talked to some people that have broken this down for me. You say those that have some peaceful ideology, some things that are harmonious, and that doesn't get the heat, the distribution that hatred does. What that means is this algorithm doesn't pick those messages of harmony and tranquility up and push them out to as many people as do the hate messages, because those hate messages are clickbait.
Yeah.
And people click on those, and so they spread, they get more clicks, which means there's more advertising dollars, and people are outraged by that. And it's like, oh my God, can you believe this? And they click on it, and then they send it to someone else, and they get outraged, and they click on it. And so that spreads, while this message here of, hey, have a nice day, doesn't get any heat. There's no emotional charge to it, so it just sits there.
It's exactly that. And what that does over time, and at scale, is it makes us look at, so that if the lens through which we look at other people's opinions and at society as a whole are these platforms, for better or for worse, these platforms have 4.5 billion users around the world. They are incredibly influential on our lives.
From a purely psychological standpoint, it would be psychopathic or narcissistic. People that go on a dating site and they show a picture that was 30 pounds and 10 years ago to attract more males or females, depending on what their target is, they know that this is going to hit the wall, because if they do get a hit, they get an attraction, they go to a meeting, they know they're going to be barely recognizable when they show up. So they know it's going to hit a wall that, okay, I can show A and then present B, so I am going to have to come clean. They're going to see the difference. How do they justify that and ignore the fact that they're going to have to pay the piper? They're going to have to come clean eventually.
Yeah, so there are two things that happen. One is that if you had that happen to you, you start believing that other people do it as well.
Yeah.
Right? So
he or she's not going to show up looking that way either.
That's right. So that's one of the things about the slippery slope of society, right? So if somebody disappointed you with their picture, now you are disappointing. So that's one. The second thing is rationalization. I had one person came to me and said, I know I'm 40, but I really feel like I look 36. So wouldn't it be actually more honest to say 36, because it's a better description
exactly
of what I am? But so that's the second thing. And the third one is that people are hopeful that if the other person would only give a chance to know the real them, they will fall in love with them.
I remember when I was 15, 364 days, 23 hours, and 59 minutes, I was down at the DMV to get a driver's license, because the second I turned 16, I wanted a driver's license so I could become really mobile. Now, it's like they hardly care. They're watching people live their lives instead of living their own lives. They start dating later. They start driving later. They're less accomplished in interpersonal interactions.
Right.
They're not involved in the world because they're watching it go by on a little screen. And to me, that makes us so much less competitive with prior generations, and certainly in the world competitive market. I just don't see how this is not going to have terrible consequences, not only for the individual, but for our society. It's slowing everything down.
I think it's dampened. It's created a stunting, dampening effect on adolescents. What you said was exactly right about the driving. So lower permit and licensing ages, lower participation in team sports, later dating, less sexual. Our teenagers aren't having sex the way that they used to, because the gravitational pull of the digital crack makes everything else boring or too much effort requiring. So a lot of the young people that I work in my clinics, they are uninteresting and uninterested. They're flat. There's an emptiness there. Everything, they've been so overstimulated by visual digital stimuli, whether it's hardcore pornography or whether it's immersive gaming or whether it's the information overload of social media, that the real world is just, it's too boring for them. So our challenge is to try to get a young person who's been so desensitized by this new media that's inundating their every part of their lives to get back into the game, to get back into where I live in my local community, they couldn't field a varsity football team at the high school for the first time ever.
Really?
Because there weren't enough teenagers that were willing to put in the footwork and the time that it takes because they were gaming. And they're not dating either because that takes social skills and everything else. So I think we're underappreciating quite how it's impacting all of our young people in this really profound way. And then the main thing that I think also keep in mind is we're evolutionarily hardwired to be social animals. We need face-to-face human interaction. And that was, for obvious reasons, the tribe survived. Our strengths came in our community support of one another, both in the prehistoric times to medieval to the present. And now in the social media age, it was the false, the irony of it all is the Kool-Aid that we were all given about something like social media was social media for a social species was supposed to be this elixir. It was going to be like chocolate and peanut butter coming together. It was going to be a match made in heaven. And what we're seeing is that social media is actually anti-social media. It makes people more alone and isolated, and it drives what's called the comparison effect, where you have all these people now comparing themselves to everybody's outsides, to everybody's digitally curated selves. And that makes them feel worse about themselves.